Join us, Planet Kids, for Can This Tree Be Saved? Part of the Sherwin Search for Science series with urban forester Scott Solinger, who's come to see us from Penn State Extension. Welcome, Scott.
Ants work in decayed wood. They aren't like termites. They don't work in sound wood. So when you see a string of carpenter ants running up and down inside your tree, you know that the wood is decayed. And that is not necessarily a bad thing, because your tree can put up with some extent of decay before the system breaks. And where you don't have a lot of wind and a lot of forces exerted on the tree, it really doesn't require a lot of strength to stand. But at some point, some kind of a force will come along, like a storm, and decay will have extended on out to where the strength of the system can no longer withstand the force or the stress that occurs. 23 years ago, this tree was wounded. And that's the extent of our hollow. That's essentially where it had laid down a boundary where the decay did not extend beyond that wounding. And each year after, this is the way trees defend themselves against wounding, and is it laid on a new growth ring, a new layer of growth and defense and strength. And the decay was not able to penetrate that last strong wall that was laid down of new growth. But inside, the decay penetrated toward the middle of the tree. Okay, I think the tree may have been the same age as the house, maybe 50 years old.
They actually moved this shed here 50 years ago.
Oh, okay.
The house was built about 1911 or whatever,
Okay.
but they moved the shed over here about 50 years ago, which would...
Makes sense, doesn't it? And at that point, the tree kept growing, and the decay that had entered after the wound kept working in towards the middle of the tree. And the tree was strong enough to put on defenses as it grew out, so the decay did not extend on out. If a person wants to save the tree as long as they can, and they find they have ants in the tree, they'll want to probe the tree, look for some kind of a hollow or a wound where there may be some opening in the wall of the tree trunk. And that's the strength of the system. When there's a hole in that wall, you know that there's a breach in the system, and that's an area where we can probe the tree without wounding it further. Otherwise, we would have to cause our own wound just to see how thick the wall was, just to get to the point of decay. So we would be causing damage to the structure of the tree just to find out how far the decay had extended into. The person needs to know how much decay is going on in their tree, because the more decay, the more wood that is rotted, the more strength of the structure is taken away. So the less they have holding their tree up, the more decay that has gone on. To know how much is in there is not easy, because trees hide what's inside. When that tree gets wounded, they don't heal up inside. They just cover it over with new growth, and they try to outgrow what's being taken away. So a person either has to poke a new hole, either breach the defenses of the tree to figure out what they have, or they have to compare it to something they know. And it was hard to do with this one unless there was a limb out of the tree, or there was some kind of a hollow that they could measure inside to see how much decay there was in here. And it's a guess. Now, a kind of a rule of thumb for a wood of normal strength is to say that a tree can stand maybe half of their diameter or being taken up in decay, or more aggressively to say they could take a strong structure and 2/3 of it could be decayed if the walls of this cylinder were solid. But if the walls were broken, like it had a break, a limb broke out, or a hollow was there, or something else was wounded, then they need to cut back and say that they could only allow 1/3 of this diameter to be decayed and still call the structure safe enough to stand if there weren't some strong force going on, like strong winds. To save this tree, they need to know how much risk they're able to take, or how much they're willing to take, and how strong the structure of the tree is. If they don't know how strong the structure is, then they're really guessing on that end, and they've got a lot more unknowns, so they're taking a larger risk. And so they have to know how much risk they're comfortable with. I mean, the ants are just living in a house that they're cleaning out. They're not causing further damage to this tree. It's not like termites. Now, if it were termites, then I would say the termites are damaging the tree further. But with ants, no, they don't hurt anything. To treat carpenter ants, to manage or control or kill carpenter ants in a structure like this, in a tree where you see they're working, you could use an insecticide dust that's labeled for ant control outside in this situation. And there are several on the market. You'll want to talk to your extension office or your pesticide expert, your licensed applicator, to see which one to use and see if it matches the conditions you have. Roots lie within the upper surface, 18 inches of the surface of the soil. That's where they can get the right combination of water and oxygen. They need both to live. Most mature trees do not have tap roots under them. So these roots would have probably extended a foot into the soil and just spread out along the surface of the ground, much farther than the height of the tree in good soil. You got these major anchor roots. They call that the root plate. And if this tree were to blow over, you see how it pulls soil up in a big dish, in a pan with it. That's the root plate that comes up with it.
The owner of this Norfolk pine felt there was risk to maintaining this tree. However, the exterior tree rings show it continued to grow strong for another 23 years past its original wound. Send us a picture of a tree you would like to know if it can be saved to IamAPlanetKid@gmail.com.